Wisdom, man.
Hey, hey.
Hey, how you doing?
We are good. How are you today?
I'm good. I'm good. It's good to be here. So now I know which one of you is Sunny and which one of you is Sangria.
Absolutely, absolutely. Okay, so first we want to start it off, John. We just want to ask you first of all, um, how long? Well, actually, where are you from? How long? And how long have you been in doing the comedian business?
Well, I'm originally from Rhode Island, right?
Okay.
That's where I grew up, and uh, I moved to LA in 1977 and lived out there until a couple of years ago. What happened was the building that I lived in there since 1995.
Mm.
So some people bought the building and they decided they were going to get rid of all the tenants and renovate the building, which, it needs it. It's an old building, you know. But what happened was I started looking for a new place to live, and I hadn't had a credit card or a bank loan in over 30 years. So I had no credit rating. So when I started looking for a place to live, I would find these places that I could afford. I really wanted to move in, but they'd say no credit rating, you can't get in. So uh, I have a friend who lives out here by Rochester, New York, and that's where I'm living right now.
Okay.
And I wish I was back in LA, but that's just the way the situation is.
Okay. So we got to ask you, where did the name Honest John come from? Because I know you had a different name before the Honest John came about, correct?
Uh, well, I no, when I started out in comedy, I was Honest John. Uh,
Okay.
but um, the the reason why the name came about was because the comedians that I like best are the ones that have something to say that tell the truth. So that's the kind of comedian I want to be.
Yeah.
Okay.
So I'm curious about not having no credit rating for 30 years. Sounds like to me you was off the grid somewhere. Like, what was you know what I mean? Like, what made you, how did that happen to be able not to be involved with society for over 30 years with
No, I've been involved with society, uh, but
I
when
don't
I
I don't
was
want you to know, I don't want the people to know you was living in the woods in Rochester or somewhere.
no, when I was in my early 20s, uh, I got some credit cards, and I was young and stupid and irresponsible, and I got in trouble with them. So after that, I decided no more credits. I'm gonna just pay as I go,
Right.
and so that's what happened, And no credit cards, no loans, nothing like that. Just paying as I went, and so then it never occurred to me that I might need a credit rating un- un- until I had to move. You would think they would say, "Well, this guy doesn't owe anybody any money," but no. Instead, it's like, "Oh no, you're not a responsible person because you know." I would have been better off if I were head over heels in debt. Right.
Right. Sometimes sometimes they give you the most amount of money when you owe somebody else a lot of money.
Yeah. So that's where it's at.
Yeah.
Okay.
Where did you get your first of all, I want to know the inspiration. What inspired you to want to, I mean, we know where the Honest John came from, but what inspired you to first want to be a comedian? Like, was you the funny guy in school? Or, you know, where
Well,
did the comedian start from?
I've always been funny. I've always been
Okay.
funny. Yeah. I mean that's that's just been a part of who I am, right?
Right.
Mhm.
But what happened was I when I moved out to LA, which was 1977, right?
Wow.
I moved out there with the band. I was going to be I was a singer. I was going
Mhm.
to be a rock star.
Okay.
That didn't work out,
Okay.
and eventually the other guys in the band, they just decided to hell with this and they went home. I stayed out in LA, and I was working. I have a background in psychology. So
Okay.
I was working in that field, working in different mental hospitals. And matter of fact, I had been working in the state mental hospital in Norwalk, California, for about 12 years or so,
Mm.
Wow.
and I was getting my master's degree in psychology. But as time went on, I was just, it's a kind of profession that burns you out. You know what
I
I'm
can
Okay.
imagine.
saying? And so as time went on, I was like, I really don't want to do this for the rest of my life. What else can I do? And so then I was watching Evening at the Improv, that old comedy show. And there was
Mm-hmm.
a comic on that show that I didn't think was very good. I don't remember his name or anything about him. I just
Mhm.
remember that I was like, he's not that funny, and he's on TV. I can do that.
Right.
So next morning, I was out doing open mics. Next evening, I was out doing open mics,
In
and
LA?
in LA, yeah.
Oh
Okay.
wow.
Okay.
Okay.
And
So no more rock band for you. It's all full comedy
no,
now.
it's all kind. Although I do have an album. I have
I we
after.
I saw that you were sharing on Facebook, and I actually went to take a listen to it, and it's very interesting. And the title too, Jesus has an AK-47.
That's yeah, yeah. That's what
What
that's.
is the concept with that?
Well, I named it after one of the songs on the album, which is Jesus has an AK-47, and it's a song that I wrote uh, in the '90s, and it's about religious cults. It's not
Okay.
about actual biblical Jesus. It's about all
Right.
these people that pretend, like David Koresh down in Waco. He went around telling people he was Jesus, right?
Mm.
right.
So, uh, and so that's where the name came from, and the song's really funny. So you definitely want to
It
check
is.
it out.
I like the one song you have on there. I think it's Hideaway or
Oh
something like
yeah,
that. Yeah, I
yeah,
like that one because it's talking
yes,
about yourself, really, kind of like your inner self and your the things that you deal with in life too. So I kind of like that.
yeah. I'm a decent songwriter. I'm not a. Uh, I would be able to write more songs if I was a better musician, but I'm
Right.
not a good musician. But I did get a friend to help me out with the guitars on the album, and I think it's pretty good. So, but every now and then I get an idea for a song, but then I can't really get it to come together like when I was young. I was able to.
Okay.
So I'm curious, being that you were working in the psychology field and in a
Yeah,
particular establishment for 12 years, in my head, while you was talking, John, I was wondering, I was like, okay, was he really working there? Was he one of the patients? I'm just curious, you know what I'm saying?
well,
And I
uh,
imagine that my question is, do you get a lot of, or did you get a lot of some of your material of what you used on the comedian field
While you were, a
while you
psychologist or
were
dealt with certain people or
dealing with the
weirdos.
mentally
Yeah,
disturbed?
no,
deserved.
no, not really. It's like, to me, that would be like violating the rights of the patients that I worked with. So
Okay,
I never did anything about working at the state mental hospital or anything like that, or about any of the patients up on stage.
okay,
For me, the whole thing about comedy is, well, you see what it is. I talk about what's going on and uh, what I think about and what's going on in the news and stuff like that. So no, it never occurred to me to want to poke fun at the patients.
Okay. All right. I mean,
I do have some funny stories,
I
right,
imagine you do.
from working there. Also, some really terrible stories. But
Yeah, I could imagine. I mean, I wouldn't so much as think that it would be directed at a particular patient itself, but just some of the experiences and the funny things that happen, and just from human nature, the way people are, that would give you some
well,
comedic.
let me share a funny story now while I'm on this interview, right? Okay. Having one day, we the pipe that leads out from the toilets out into the cesspool or whatever it is they have out there, right? It broke. It broke. So they dug up the area and pulled out the pipe, and there was a whole bunch of clothes in the pipe. And at the hospital, when a patient comes in and we give them clothes, we stencil their name on the clothes. So we knew who it was. So it was this young lady, well, not really that young, but 30, 35-year-old lady, right? And so we brought her in to have a meeting with her, and we were like, we found your clothes in the pipe, you can't be flushing your clothes down the toilet. And she just looked at me dead in the eye and said, John, everybody flushes their clothes down the toilet. So there was no arguing with that. But yeah, I mean, I was doing that, and then I decided I needed to get out of the business, and so I started doing comedy, and it worked out. Doesn't work out for everybody.
Doesn't work out.
I'm not going to tell people like, hey, come on and join the fun, be a comic, because man, you go through a lot of shit, and there's a whole lot of people with a lot of talent.
And I want to say too, you being like on Showtime at the Apollo and doing BET and COMICVIEW, what are some of your favorable moments with the other comedians, or who is one of your favorite comedians that you've worked with behind the scenes?
Well, I was really, really good friends with the late D. Militant, Darryl Littleton, who was both a comedian and an author. Unfortunately, he passed away about a year and a half ago. Of course, I loved, Cosby, not Cosby, Pryor. I like Cosby all right. Didn't realize he was kind of creepy like he was, but anyway, I liked Pryor and Carlin. Those was and Lenny Bruce. Lenny Bruce is one of my favorite comics too. But I mean, there's all kinds of amazing talent out there. There are a lot of comics out there who are really, really good and don't get the credit they deserve, including myself. So, but so I try to encourage the young comics. I do.
I imagine. Well, you're from Rochester, New York, so you already sound like a New Yorker. You already kind of edgy. You're already kind of edgy because you're from New York. But is there a difference when you're actually performing in the five boroughs or New York City? Because New York is a hard crowd to please.
Well, I'm not anywhere near New York City. Rochester.
No, I know you're from Rochester.
I'm not from Rochester. I'm living in Rochester. But
Rochester, okay.
But Rochester is 300 miles away from New York City, so it ain't like I can get down there and do a show every night. And there's hardly anything happening up here in Rochester as far as comedy goes. So I really miss LA. I hope I'll be able to get back there, but right now my finances don't allow it.
Hmm.
Okay. Okay.
No, that's right. Instead,
Of course, with
what
all
I
the
wanted to, go ahead.
with all
What was you
the
gonna say,
with all
Don?
the with all the rain they've been having, you know that that rain gets down into the earthquake faults, and it not only increases the pressure on the earthquake faults, it also lubricates it. The water makes it wetter.
Right.
So there's a real good chance that uh, California is going to have some big quakes, uh, in the next couple of years or so. So if I miss that, I won't mind.
Oh, okay, so you being on stage and different things like that, was there like a particular moment where you kind of like cracked or something or anything like that? Do you have one of like those moments where you kind of like messed up on something, or how were you able to like, come back from it, or how are you able to like, with the crowd?
Well, when you're a new comic,
Hmm.
right? When you're a new comic, I mean, your whole set is pretty much a mess up, until you until you get that together. But as I was coming up, I could see myself making progress. For one thing, I was a open mic fanatic.
Oh, okay.
And what I would do is I made it a point to go out and not just do one open mic a night. I would do 2 or 3 open mics a night. So I was getting better fast.
Okay.
You
That's
know,
smart.
the more you do, if you have some talent, the more it'll show. And so that came out and people started noticing me. And next thing you know, instead of doing open mics, I'm getting paid little small amounts to
Hmm.
do shows. And then, finally got some TV exposure and did a few movies and stuff like that. And now, uh, that's what I do for a living.
Yeah. Was it easy to transition into films from comedy for you?
No, no, nothing's easy. You have to work at it. But
Yeah.
I had been acting back in my younger days before I got into comedy,
Hmm.
and even when I got to LA, I was in a play uh, for a few weeks, and so I do have some acting chops.
Okay. Yeah, because I saw you in I think I remember the first time I think I saw you in For the Love of Money, and then the Wash I
For the
think
love
you
of
were in
money,
too, right?
yeah.
Hmm.
For the love of money, that's a
With
that's a
Pierre.
uh,
Pierre.
that's a, Pierre did a great job directing that film, and doing all the behind the scenes stuff, in addition to being in it. So I have a lot of respect for his talent. I hope he gets to direct and produce more films.
Mm-hmm.
Nice, nice, nice.
Yeah. So I know that had to be because I know a lot of people. For a lot of people, like you said, for you it was an easy transition into films. You know what I'm saying? Would you ever like to produce a comedic film or a film in general?
Uh, for now, I'd settle for just having a role in one. I really don't know much about what's involved in production.
Okay.
So if I were in LA, I would get some opportunities. I could probably do some behind the scenes work on different projects, but I'm not there anymore.
Because I was gonna say you've been in the game for quite some time, for a really long time, and have you ever thought about doing like a documentary for yourself or on yourself, or has that ever came to mind? Or
Um, you know, uh, 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 I would rather have somebody else do a documentary on me because I'm too close to the subject matter.
Okay.
okay.
You know what I mean? I want,
You
for,
too honest?
well, I'm just like, you know, uh, I want it to be an objective look. If somebody has some if there are some faults to find with me, I'm okay with that, you know. But
Mm-hmm.
I wouldn't do it if I was doing the documentary. So it'd be better, I think, if I had if somebody else did the documentary.
Okay.
Right. Somebody looking in, I guess, from outside would have will have a different perspective of the way you would see it in doing your documentary or a doc movie or whatever we may call it. You know what I'm
Exactly,
saying?
exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. If you had the opportunity to play a role, because you just said you would rather play a role rather than do the producing, what would be the ideal role
Mm-hmm.
that you may want to do in a particular movie? Whether it be being a comedian the way you are, a serious role, a dramatic role,
Or who would you have
you
playing
know,
you if you know?
Freddie, Honest John the Killer. I don't know. You know what I mean? You tell me.
Being a killer, I would kind of be kind of appealing. Matter of fact, there recently there isn't a movie. I forget the name of it, but where there's an old guy, and these
Mm-hmm.
people, these thieves or something like that, are in his house, and he kills them all. And
Mm.
I was like, yeah, man, I'd love to do that part, you know. But you know, anything. Obviously, because I'm a certain age,
Mm-hmm.
I'm not gonna get the lead role. I'm gonna be kind of like uh, maybe the guy who the hero turns to when he needs advice and stuff like
Right.
that. Or maybe I'd just be some crazy old guy that everybody
That
pokes
show him
fun
how to
at,
do it right.
you know. Uh, could be anything. Could be anything, you know.
Okay.
Well, I want to go back to your Showtime at the Apollo days and your BT Comic View. How did that come about? Like, how did you get were able to get on Showtime at the Apollo?
Well, what happened was I was doing the open mics just like all the other comics. And you make friends, you know, as you go along. And so a lot of the people that I made friends with were black comics.
Okay.
And it was kind of interesting because they invited me to come down to the old Comedy Act Theater and Mavericks Flats and the Fun House and all these different comedy clubs. And they weren't inviting the other white comics. They just saw something in me that
Right.
I
Mm-hmm.
didn't that I didn't think about. And at first, I was like, you know, what am I going to be doing in a club where everybody else is black and I'm the only white guy? That was a little scary for me.
Right.
Yeah.
But eventually, one of my friends called up, a guy by the name of Gerald McWhirter from Chicago. He's no longer in the comedy game.
Okay.
Okay.
Uh, and he just called up and he said, "Saddle up, John, we're going." And so he came and picked me up, and we went out to the Comedy Act Theater, did the open mic there, and I did really well. And after that, I just started doing all the other black clubs. And after a while, I was doing, which is still the case today, I was doing a lot more black clubs than white clubs.
Wow, that's interesting.
So it wasn't my idea. It wasn't like I planned it that way. It
Mm-hmm.
was
The
that
destiny.
it was that some other people saw something in me that I didn't, and so it was somebody else's idea.
No, I can see that happening because we've actually watched you entertain. Like I've seen you more than one time on different stages, and to me, you're funnier than a whole bunch of comedians. Period.
Yes.
Let alone black or white or whatever the case is. I enjoy your comedy.
Yeah.
You know, I think your comedy is pretty funny and pretty on point. and I just know that had to be a great experience when you did the Apollo. You know.
Oh yeah, yeah. Matter of fact, what was interesting about that was that uh, I had, when they asked me what I was going to do, I had in mind a certain material,
Mm-hmm.
and the producers said, "Well, why don't you do this material?" Right? And so they're the ones writing the check. So I said, oh, okay, I'll do it. So now I got up and I followed little Kim, who
Mm,
Uh,
was just amazing. Who was just
in those
amazing.
days, especially.
okay.
So the crowd was not even settled down yet, right? So I started out with the material that they wanted me to do, and it wasn't hitting. And fortunately, there were enough of my fans in the audience that they kept me from getting booed off stage. But
Okay.
what happened was after about 30, 40 seconds, I switched into the material that I wanted to do and killed it.
There
Yeah,
And
you go.
and the producers were fine with that. So it was cool. But
right.
I did give their material a shot at first.
Okay.
So it had to be pretty tough to be going behind little
Yeah.
Kim anyway. And at the Apollo, that was a tough space to be in from Jump Street.
Right.
Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Oh yeah. Like I said, she was amazing. She was great. And when they edited the show, they made it look like I came before her, but that's not
Mm.
the way that's not the way it actually was. So, it made things more of a challenge, but I rose to the challenge and I did good. So I'm proud of it.
And it fell into place just how it was supposed to fall into place, because I feel like too, when someone tries to make you do their material versus you freestyling or doing your own, it it doesn't come out right, because you want to be able to do whatever it is for yourself and your own material, which you
Well,
succeeded.
it was my material that they wanted me to do. It just
Right,
wasn't.
twisted.
Well,
It
okay,
wasn't
switch.
the same stuff. So,
Got
it turned out all right. But you know, um, you try to make the people that hire you happy, but there's a point
yeah,
where you have to say, "Well, I'm on to nope, got to do it this
yeah,
way."
yeah.
Well, you got to be pretty seasoned. You are pretty seasoned to know when you're on stage and you're doing one. I don't want to call it a skit, but you're doing some material and it's not working. You kind of got to be a little seasoned to recognize right away that that's not working, and in your mind flip to something that you know would work.
Yeah, one of the things I tell young comics is you have to listen to the audience,
Yeah.
right? You have to pay attention to what the audience is doing. Now, some people get up on stage and they're actually so focused on their material
Mm.
that they're not even paying attention to the audience. So I always tell them you got to listen to the. I had a comedian come up to me after a show one time, and he said, "How'd I do?" And I said, "You were there. If you don't know how you did, something's wrong."
Hey, that's true. That's true. The audience is definitely an important part of people's performances and different things like that. Even when you even with singers, like if you stop and freeze or your music comes off, you're not supposed to stop. Keep going, so you can keep the audience going and different things like that. So yeah, that is very important.
Yeah, uh, there was the thing about music is that if the audience isn't really with you, you can kind of just get off on doing the music.
Right.
Especially if it's a band and there's several people, you can kind of like get into what you're doing. And some people in the audience will like it, but some places you play at, you're just in the background.
Right.
When you're doing comedy, there has to be energy between you and the audience, you
Mm.
know. And occasionally you do places where the audience really isn't there for the comedy show, but what you have to do is you focus like on the maybe 4 or 5 people that are paying attention, and you home in on them. You don't try to just win over all the other people. You just focus on them, and maybe that'll spread. as more and more people pay attention to what you're doing. But if you're trying to just get the attention of a loud crowd, uh, and they're not there for that, they're
Mhm.
coochie hunting, socializing, watching TV and
Yeah,
stuff
on
like
the
that.
phones.
And they don't care what you're doing up on stage. You can't worry about that. Work with the people that are paying attention.
You sound like to me
Yeah.
that one of your next jobs should be a comedic consultant.
Right,
Like
or director.
they should be paying you to have a room full of comedians, good, bad, or indifferent, and kind of explain some things to them because it sounds like that you have a lot to give back.
Yeah, because you just broke it down of what, you know what I'm
Some
saying?
things you just naturally break down, John. It's just easy. Seems like you could be some different person off this camera, but it seems like you're a pretty easy person to communicate with.
Well, one of the things that I also tell people is that it's a lot of extra work being an egotistical asshole. Basically, the way I think of myself is I'm a regular person with a really good job. And yeah, I would love to teach a comedy class. I think I could do it. Like I would start off right with the basics, like how to raise and lower a mic stand. You know what I'm saying? Right? Because some people they put their feet on the base of the mic stand and just pull it up, and that strips the thing. And the next thing you know, the club needs a new mic stand, and a mic stand is a very expensive piece of equipment. So the first thing I would start off with is teaching the comics, lefty loosey, righty tighty. This is how you adjust the mic and go from there, right? Start from the basics. It would be a couple of classes before we even got into like doing comedy.
Actual comedy.
Yeah, because it's those steps that you have to learn, those little small steps before you can get to those big steps. Yeah, you would be a great comedian, director, consultant. Yeah,
that's what a big one is.
Well, I'm a big fan of mine, so
right. No, I get that all day, baby, all day, Jordan. Listen, can't be no greater fan of anybody other than myself.
Right.
You know what I'm saying? So.
We appreciate you, John. What's next and what's new? Like, what's coming up with you and different things of that sort? What do you have going on now? I know you got the April Fool's still comedy thing, right? You're still touring with that.
Well, we did that show on April Fool's Day, but we're doing that same thing that David Raybon put together, which is a black guy, a white guy, and a Mexican. Although this time in Atlanta, that's on the when is that show? June 2nd.
Okay.
And 2nd and 3rd in Atlanta. Before that, I'm doing the Omaha Funny Bone on May 28th. On May 13th, I'm hosting a show at the McMahon Memorial Auditorium in Lawton, Oklahoma. Now it's a basically a music show, and I'll just be the host. So it's not about me; it's about the music. I'll give them good jokes, but I recognize that this is what it's about. I'm just filling in the space between the bands. And then also, when is it? June 17th, I'll be at the in Seattle, Washington, at the Comedy Shop, I believe it's called.
Okay, booked and busy. Are you working on any new films or anything?
There's not much opportunity to do that out here. I would love to get in a film. For one thing, it pays good. It might give me the money to get out of here.
Right,
but
right.
you know, there's just not much opportunity there. I have had some people contact me and tell me that they had projects going on, and I've let them know that I'll be happy to be a part of it. But this is what the situation is. So we'll see if any of that materializes.
Well, we definitely got to get you back out in Arizona. I really enjoyed that April Fool's comedy jam with you, David Rayborn, and Juan Villarreal. I think I said his name right. But I
Juan
really,
Villarreal, yeah,
yeah,
yeah.
I really enjoyed that show, and we got to get you back in Phoenix.
Oh well, that'd be cool. That'd be cool.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
As a matter
Give
of fact,
everybody,
David says he's working on getting me back to Phoenix. So we'll see if
Okay.
that
yeah, yeah,
materializes.
definitely.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, there's
Cool.
been some
So
conversations, so absolutely.
so shout
Uh,
out to David Raybon. He's the man. Oops, what
Yes.
you
happened?
go give everybody your social media, your
Okay.
Instagram or your Facebook or whatever else you have.
On Instagram, I'm at RealHonestJohn4. On Facebook, there's an Honest John fan page, and also there's a page under my regular name, which is John Basinger. And then on Twitter, I'm at Real Honest John.
Okay. Okay. Well, we appreciate you today. Thank you so much for coming out. Um, yeah, we
Thank you.
appreciate
Thank you so much for inviting me. I'm
Yeah, for sure, Don. Thank you, my
talking
brother.
about my favorite subject, me.
Yourself.
Absolutely, absolutely. We appreciate you so much. Thank you so much, John, for tuning in and just coming in to share your story with us.
Oh, well, once again, thank you for having me. I appreciate it.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Okay, I guess you can shut me off now, or I'll shut
Yeah,
myself.
yeah, yeah,
We
yeah,
got
yeah,
you. We got
yeah.
you.